Wonderful week since the last time we got together. Sorry it's a little bit late today, but we're getting there little by little by little. I have a great guest on for you, but before we get to that, I just want to tell you I have some great guests booked up as we keep moving forward. I have Loretta Swit, Anson Williams. I just put a call in for Adrian Paul from the Highlanders, so we're going to be moving along. And also next week, we will be on at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, so Tommy, my engineer, can go home and actually see his family for a change. So we're going to be moving forward here with Mainstreet. I hope you enjoy the show. I enjoy bringing it to you, and we will move forward. Before we get going on to my first guest, Fran Capo, who is a dear friend of mine, I want to mention just real quickly that one of the greats of Major League Baseball passed away today, Mr. Hank Aaron, at the age of 86 years old. He was probably one of the greatest baseball players to ever play. Even if he had never broke Babe Ruth's record of 214 at 714, excuse me, and 715, he was one of the greats. He was great at everything he did. He was a great gentleman on the field as well he was off. He broke the barriers for a lot of African-American black athletes as well as commentators and broadcasters to do the job that they do today. So, you know, when get your head on the pillow tonight, thank Hank Aaron for a lot of enjoyment as a baseball fan, and it was an joy in spite of all the hate mail that he got from people who were just plain ignorant about what Hank Aaron was and because of his skin color. And I've never quite understood that, and I guess I probably never will. So let me get to my guest. Fran Capo is very difficult to describe. She's an adventure junkie. She's a producer, director, writer, Guinness Book of World Records for so much that people just love this woman. I do dearly. And she has been down to the Titanic. I mean, literally down to the Titanic, not watching it on a film, but down in a submersible she climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. She's, like I said, 9 times Guinness Book of World Record holder. She's written a wonderful book called Hopeville, which I've read, passed on to many of my friends. She is a dear friend, comedian, actress, producer, director, you name it. Mr. Excuse the heck out of me. Mr. I'm thinking
all of that, and I'm a mister.
You're a mister, huh? Miss Fran Capo, welcome, my love.
Thank you very much. You know, I have all these records and I do all these crazy things. The one thing I can't do is technology. What can I tell you?
Well, I can't find a girlfriend, so we'll figure out something in between, you know.
All right, there you go.
Fran, you know, you've been on many of my shows many, many times. And the one question, I don't know if I've asked this of you or not, but as a child growing up, were you always precocious, always out there, energy bunny, you know, always doing something?
Well, you know, I mean, I'm lucky because my mom taught me that nothing is impossible. And my dad taught me to always find the humor in life. So when I was raised with that kind of philosophy, everything to me was possible. So I remember the very first time I remember doing something like, I guess that would be considered like a little daredevil crazy, was I probably was about 5 years old. And my mom had taken us to the circus. And the clowns, you know, they were sitting one on top of each other's shoulders. Right. So when I got home, I told my sister, I said, get on my shoulders. And I went outside in the front of the house on my 2-wheel bike. And my sister was sitting on my shoulders. And instead of my mother saying, hey, you know, don't do that, blah, blah, my mother was just like, watch out for the cars. So she was like, you know, she prompted me to be able to do these things, not with the, oh my gosh, you're going to get hurt. Don't do that. It was always that thing of, you know, what is she doing now? I remember also, just like every time I would come up with an idea, my mother would just go, all right, just be careful. She wouldn't say, no, don't do that. She would always just say, be careful, research it. So when you always have somebody who's giving you that thing, my mom said when I was little, though, I would always come up to people and say, sweetheart, can you do me a favor? And I was always like pouring on the honey to get something.
Oh, yes.
But so I guess I always use humor, sweetness, but you know, genuine, not just to get something, but I figured you get more with honey than sugar, more with sugar than, well, let's see, than vinegar, I guess. What's the saying? Yes. Yeah. Honey than vinegar? I don't know.
You get
whatever.
More bees, you get more bees with honey than you do with the vinegar.
Vinegar, right? Exactly. Although now I eat apple cider vinegar, so I get a lot from the apple cider vinegar. But either way, I'm still sweet. So,
Yes, you are.
yes. So as a kid, I was always doing that. Listen, when I was 3 years old, we lived in the village, Greenwich Village in Manhattan, and my dad had a motorcycle. Back then, there were no helmet laws. My dad would sit me on the handlebars of the motorcycle
Really?
and ride around New York City. So yeah, I'm 3 years old on the handlebars. He didn't think, oh, I stopped short, she'll fall off, any of that. The other thing I remember too was back then even fireworks were illegal, and we lived at 206 Thompson Street in the village. And actually the apartment we lived in was what's the guy's name? The gangster that always wore that pretended he was crazy and always wore the bathrobe.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember his name, but they
who I'm talking, Gigante. Isn't it Gigante? I think it is. It was Gigante.
I think you're in the family. Yeah.
Well, when he went to prison, he had a brother who was a priest, but he said to my dad, I don't want to lose the apartment. You watch it for me. So we lived in his apartment. But the thing was, I remember my dad taking me to the roof of the building and shooting off fireworks. And I guess somebody complained. And here I am coming down the stairs. At that point, I was like 2 or 3. Again, I was like 3 years old, coming down the stairs, holding my dad's hand, and a police officer is running up the stairs. And he goes, sir, did you see anybody shooting off fireworks? And he's like, no, I didn't see anybody. And as we're walking down, I go, Daddy, let's do it again. Let's do it again. That was the first lesson I got in don't be a rat.
Yeah. Nobody likes a rat.
Nobody likes a rat.
since you have lived in New York a good part of your life, before we get into the show business part of your world, which is enormous. And by the way, we're watching Miss Fran Capo, a dear friend of mine. I'm jealous of her husband. He got there before
Thank
me.
You.
But she's about to become a Floridian at some point or another, and I'm very proud of that.
No. That's maybe. That's not for sure.
Oh, I thought that was a for sure. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, hey, look, even I make mistakes. Fran, you have lived in New York a good part of your life. You've traveled. What's New York like now? I mean, we hear the streets are empty.
New York, I mean, I'm a native New Yorker. I'm a stand-up comic, although, obviously this is the way we're performing these days.
You're sitting
New
down
York
now.
Is, in my opinion, horrible. It's a shell of what it was. And I understand this COVID and everything that's going on, but you know what? You've got to let the businesses open up. And with all the riots that happened, windows are boarded up, graffitis all over the place. You've got no Broadway happening, no museums are opened. People are working from home. So honestly, it's like a ghost town. And New York was a city that in the summer people would come to see. What are they going to come? They can't go to Broadway shows. They can't go to the museums. All right, you walk out in the park. You're not going to be doing that much in the winter. So I haven't gone into the city in months, but from my friends that have been there, they say it's really sad to see. And if we keep doing what we're doing, I don't know how it's going to come back. And I'm not trying to be negative, but it's like you have to use some logic in when you're doing things. If people are allowed to do certain things, then they should allow businesses to have outside dining. You got to let the people be able to make a living. Nobody wants to live off the government.
No.
So it's not a good situation in New York.
No, I would imagine it's not. I have some friends who are Broadway performers or retired Broadway performers, and they basically said the same thing as you. Speaking of which, because I know that I know a lot of comedians and stuff, and we have talked. Yep. What do you think is going to happen when, say, a year from now, when the COVID is under control? Eventually, it will be under control, and things get back to. Do you think things will slowly get back to normal, or some people are predicting, economists, that it's going to get back? It's going to be bam! It's going to be like the Roaring '20s again in the United States.
Well, this is my feeling on it. If you listen, how long have we been saying since COVID started? Keep 6 feet apart, wear your mask, and wash your hands. This thing has been going on forever and ever and ever. It's not new. Wear a mask. We know what we need to do. Let people have the common sense who want to have the business go out there. And if you allow people to do like in the beginning, maybe it was around June, there was a friend of mine, I'm not going to say names, but he tried to do a comedy show outside, 1,500 seat a tent, and only 100 people inside. And so each comic had their own microphone. The audience was masked, and someone said something and they got fined. If people don't allow people to do that, then people are going to live in fear, and then it's going to take longer for things to open up. Now, I'm not saying that I necessarily want to walk into a comedy club with 300 people and start performing. But honestly, if people were spaced out, if you could go into a restaurant and eat, why can't I stand on a stage, 12 feet away from the audience? If they're all spaced out, people need laughter. So I think what's going to happen, and I don't know where this magic bullet's going to come, because what are they going to say? We just injected our millionth person, and so now it's safe. People slowly are going to do it. Some people are already traveling on planes. I think it depends on how you feel your safety is, and also you got to be considerate of who you like. If you're a 15-year-old kid and you're going to a party, I come home, like this actually just happened. This kid, 15 years old, he came home from a party. 9 of his family members were there. He wound up infecting all the family members, the grandmother, the aunts, the uncle, because they came over for a dinner, not realizing or not being told that that kid had went to a party. Now they all have COVID. So do I think it'll open up? I think people have to use common sense in the way that they do it. And I think people are going to be so starved to see somebody's face again and to laugh and to do the things that once we get the green light, and I'm not sure how that green light happens, that people will be like, yes, we're free again. This is what you're supposed to do. And this thing about lockdowns, France did lockdowns. They're in bad position. Oh, they did it right. Yeah, they did it so right that back in the same position. You know what?
Honestly, Fran, I don't think we know what to do. I was listening to Fauci yesterday on TV, and there's a couple of new strains out there. And I think, like you did as a comic, as an actress, we're learning about this as we're going along each day, each week.
And because you're learning it as you go along, you have to do the 3 common sense things. Keep your distance, wash your hands. I don't know who these people are that don't wash their hands anyway. You know what I mean? It's like you got to be told to wash your hands. It's like, okay, but less flu because more people are washing their hands. But the thing is, you're right. It is a learning process. And because of that, you can't blame anybody for not necessarily knowing. I'm not talking about the masks and the distance and the hand washing, but if things change, and yes, but you know what? A different strain of the virus is not unusual. Every year we have a different strain of the flu. And that's
he explained it. He explained it that they viruses mutate. They change.
Exactly.
They become stronger or weaker. And he said the medications that are out there and that are coming out are going to be strong enough to defeat it. And when enough people are they get the shot. Okay, I'm not speaking well today. That there'll be enough people.
I'll help you out. Immunize or whatever.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fran. Another world record.
No problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Another world record. As soon as enough people get the shots, they're going to be fine. And like the 1918 the flu epidemic or the pandemic, this will eventually come under control. It's a shame what has happened to people that were doing well financially. Now they're very poor. On to another subject.
This is the thing. Somebody asked me the other day, what's the word that you would use for 2021? And I said, the word that I would use is creativity. And the reason is because creativity is the thing that allows you to look at something and go, we always do it this way. How could I do it this way? So for a stand-up comic, obviously we perform live. So for the past since March to now, I've been doing Zoom shows. I've been doing voiceovers, been selling my books. Actually, what I wanted to talk to you about is I may be going, for a 10th world record, because as we speak,
Yes.
Myself and 200 other comics are doing a world. If you go to world, not right now while we're doing this show live, but later on, go to worldrecordcomedy.com. So today, as of noon, January 22nd, till Monday, January 25th at midnight, 200 different comics are performing a live show. We're trying to do the longest live comedy Zoom show that ever existed to go for a record. And it's streaming on twitch.tv.
Is this the one with Mark?
Drinks.
Is this the one with Mark Riccandonna?
Yes, with Riccandonna, Mark Riccandonna, exactly.
And then Tom, who is also Basin, who has us on Twitch while we speak, because this show goes on Twitch as well. Yes, I'm well over, and keep plugging it, because I've been plugging it too, and I'm going to plug it and keep plugging it.
Yes, and there's a lot. Rick Overton, Eddie Brill, Tom Cotter, my friend Gemini, Dave Attell, Adam Ferreira. I am on. I'm going to be on a Monday, January 25th from 8 to 8:15. Everybody's doing 15 to 20 minutes. But the other cool thing is that the donations, it's a free show. You could watch a little bit today, watch a little tomorrow, watch a little the next day. You can interact with the people, not interrupt their acts, but you know what I mean? Like applaud, clap, laugh. But they're having donations that are going to be on the Twitch page for Children's Brain Tumor Foundation and for Star Treatments Cancer. So you're going to laugh. You're going to hear some funny stories. You're going to hear a lot of comics. We get to perform, and we get to raise money for some organizations, which is cool.
And how do they click onto that?
So if you go to worldrecordcomedy.com, I believe it takes you to the streaming on Twitch. But if not, you go to twitch.tv/drinks, jokes, and storytelling.
Yeah, that's Richie Burns and Mark's show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I even asked Mark, I said, how did you get Rick Overton to actually humble himself to do such a thing? Because everybody knows about Rick Overton. I remember Rick, because Rick and I were good friends with Robin Williams. And
oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. If it wasn't for Robin Williams, Fran, I would have never been with the Groundlings. Never.
Oh, Groundlings. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have. Is Jeanette participating?
I don't know. Jeanette and I haven't spoken for a week or two. Usually we speak every day, but things have been kind of crazy. Yeah, because I went RVing. Okay.
Yes, I remember the story. Tell the story of you getting to RV, and then I want to go into the Titanic, because that story never grows old. Never.
Okay. So basically what happened was, listen, everybody's home. I'm an adventurer. I was supposed to go to Vietnam this year and go into the Sun Dong Yong Cave, which is the world's largest cave, so big that a 747 can fit inside of it. So, and it has its own ecosystem. It even has its own clouds inside the cave. But
by the way, Fran, I spent time in Vietnam, but it wasn't to go into a cave.
No, not what you were doing. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I was doing it for a different reason, totally different times. Yeah.
There it is on screen, folks, for you. It says Twitch, Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling for you.
Yes.
Twitch TV, yes.
Yeah, twitch.tv, Drinks, Jokes, and the letter N, Storytelling, not N, Storytelling.
Oh, okay.
So I was supposed to do that. And so I was like, all right, we got to do something. Cause I did they had this thing online, a virtual run where could you do 100 miles in the month of August? So I decided, if I could do 100, let me do 150. So I did 150 miles in the month of August. So I'm like, Steve, what could we do that we're not going to get on a plane that would be safe? So we said, why don't we try to rent an RV, see what it would be like? All right. So we rent an RV for 17 days and we decided that we're going to drive down to Florida, see what it's like, look at the manatees, look at the mermaids, look at some houses, just look around. Yeah. So we rent this RV. It's $3,000. We rented from Cruise America. And they, so now, listen, it's not our RV. So now we got to supply it with everything. So you got to bring pots and pans and dishes and blankets and towels and soap and everything you would if you were in a house for 17 days. So we're bringing it there. Now, my husband is a wonderful man, but he's not exactly the smallest man. And so we get into the RV, and we decide instead of going straight down, we're going to stay at the camps to like get the feel of what it's like. By the way, he says to me, "You're going to drive the RV." I said, "I never drove anything bigger than like, your car, your Escalator, whatever." He goes, "Yeah, don't worry about it." So I said, "Well, at least pull into a parking lot so I could get some practice." He pulls into a parking lot, and I'm not kidding. 3 minutes. He goes, "All right, you're good." I go, "Wait a second. I'm going to get on. That's a 35-foot truck. Can I make a left and a right turn so at least I could get on and off the highway?" He goes, "All right." So now he's like, "You're only going 55. I go, "Don't rush me. There's no rear view mirror. When you look in the rear view mirror, you see the bedroom in the back. So it's like, you got to get used to this." Okay. So now we get there. We're in the camp the first night. And obviously we're tired. We're going to get up the next day. We get up. I take my shower, and I decide I'm going to make an egg while he goes to take his shower. First of all, I go to put the egg in the microwave. The whole thing explodes. So I'm like, "Oh, this is great." I hear boom, and I'm like, okay, great. Now I hear him in the shower. If I extended my elbows like just to the side, right, I could touch the sides. My husband had to stand sideways in the shower so he could take it. Now there's this tiny little shelf that if you put like a pencil on it, it would fall off. So he puts the soap on there, and all I hear is, damn, and he's saying all these things because I knew he had to bend down because the thing kept slipping off the shelf. Oh. So now there's a curtain inside when you close the door so that the water doesn't seep out. And every time he would try to turn around, the curtain was sticking to his ass. So now he's trying to turn around. He's got the thing. I hear him. I'm laughing hysterically. He's like, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Steve, the water's streaming out. The curtain's wrapped around you." I said, so then we go RVing and we drive around. We get used to driving around. We're stopping at the camps. Boy, these people at these camps take this RV thing very seriously. Yes, people have decks, they have the dogs, they have the television sets out there. Some people have fake palm trees. It was Christmas time, so they actually had like big blown up, Snoopies and Grinches. I'm like, how long are these people staying here? And they're like, "Oh, some people live here." I'm like, oh, Lord. Okay, so everything becomes a procedure because if you go to the bathroom, for whatever reason, the toilet was up on a shelf. So you have to step onto I'm like, what is this built for? A tall person? So I felt like Edith Ann because the thing was up there. And my feet were like dangling from I'm like, this is like a crazy experience. So anyway, we got to see what it's like. And what we realized is if we ever buy an RV, we're certainly not buying that one. Okay,
no, obviously that was way, way, way too small. But did you get a good feel when you were in Florida for what Florida is like?
We did, but we did. It was warmer. Actually, it wasn't that warm when we were there. I do remember thinking it's not really much warmer, but everybody was, I don't know, everybody was much more cheerful. Everybody in New York is, I guess, because we're more in that lockdown phase, everybody's depressed, it seems. Not everybody, but it just seems there. Everybody's like, yeah, And in the restaurants, people go, "Oh, the Florida people don't wear masks." All the waitresses were wearing masks. Everybody that we came into contact with was wearing masks. So, I mean, it was fine. So I did get a feel for it. So we're thinking about it. It's nothing set in stone.
What I think is probably with Florida or Arizona or Texas is that when you're in New York or Connecticut or that area, or like I lived in Chicago for 10 years, during the winter, it's dark, it's gloomy, it's down. Here, right now, it's sunny out. It's like, I think it's 78 degrees today here. It's fabulous, And
I think it's 27 here.
Well, and
listen, the sunshine does cheer you up. But the thing is, in the winter, there's still a lot of people who like to ski, like to do a lot of things. But if those things are closed, so the things you would normally do in the winter, indoor ice skating, bowling, going to the movies, all those things are closed. So the things you would normally do in the winter that could keep you happy and smiling and feeling all cheery, you can't do them. So what are you going to do? Set up a bunch of pins in your basement and start bowling? I don't know. Maybe you do it when you set up a bunch of your cats and you chase them, make them chase treats. I don't know.
Oh, no.
I keep myself busy, so I'm not worried about it. But
Well,
But
I was talking to Glenn Hirsch the other day, and Glenn said I'm coming up with a whole new routine about how many people are going to get divorced because of COVID.
oh, listen, if people listen, if I lived in that RV with Steve, I'd be divorced after those 17 days. But you know, it's because people, it's true, the divorce rates go up. But here's the thing: you get married to someone, you love them. What do? You spend your honeymoon with them. So for 2 weeks, you're with them in paradise. Then you come home, they go to work, you go to work, and you drop the kid at school. There. Now with COVID, you're both home. And who's got the TV on, who's doing this, who's washing the dishes, there's no alone time. You know, if somebody goes off to work for 8 hours, then they come back home. Realistically, how much time you're spending with them? They come home, you're eating together, maybe they're doing something, you're doing a little something, and then you go to sleep. But if you're from morning to night with the person you loved so much, might have a lot of annoying habits that you don't love so much when you're stuck with them.
And they become very prevalent when you're stuck in an atmosphere like that, more so than, say, 6 or 7 months down the line, when suddenly what Bobby did over here was funny. Now it's not so funny anymore, you know, and it's crazy. Fran, let's talk a little bit about your producer, director, adventurer. You wrote a wonderful book called Hopeville, which I love very, very much. If God came to you tomorrow and said, all right, Fran Capo, you can only do one thing for the rest of your life and you're going to be extremely successful at it, but all the rest has to go away. What is the one area, the one genre that Fran would pick?
Adventures.
Yeah, I figured that.
Because not all, because obviously the first 2 world records are, you know, being the world's fastest talking woman, you know, 603.32 words a minute. But I became the first woman to zip line inside an active volcano. I did a book signing at the top of Kilimanjaro, did a book signing down by the wreck site of the Titanic. And even though for me, I don't consider, because I know you're thinking she's a writer, she's a producer, but for me, it all combines into one. Because if I do an adventure, then I want to come back and tell people either on stage or write about it so that they can learn about that adventure and inspire them to do it also. Because if I'm just a regular woman and I can do it, why can't you do it? Right. And so to me, it's not like here's adventures, here's writing, here's comedy. It's like it's all one big thing. And so I've just always felt like as long as I could do these things and then inspire, but I love exploring the world. And that's the thing I would do the most, which obviously I can't do now. Hence why I went in an RV. I explored the RV.
And that you could have done in 5 minutes and said, well, okay, that's it. I've RV'd, and, you know, that's enough of that.
That's true. But, you know, you got to drive it to see, you know, you got to, you know, who's on the road, who doesn't know how to drive because you're in the RV, you know, all that stuff.
My mother, the first time I took her flying with me when I was like 17 years old, I took her in a private little Cessna 150 out of North Perry Airport, which is in Hollywood, Florida, where I grew up. And you know, my dad was a captain with Eastern Airlines. My uncles flew with the different airlines. And all of us were pilots except for my brother, Michael, who was a pro football player. And she was like as nervous as the day I took her driving in a car for the first time. She said, is this airplane going to get off the ground? I said, yes, Mom, I don't plan on killing either one of us. And it was really a surprise. But here's my question, because my mom asked this question of me many, many years ago before she passed. She said, with all the travels that you have had, and Fran, this goes for you, do you think it's made you a better person, more well-rounded person than, say, someone who really just stays in their own backyard, watches the news, and gets their opinions from there? Has traveling helped you?
I don't know if the word would be a better person, I guess, because I like to feel that I'm good, you know, that I try to be kind to people where I am. But what it does do to me, it's wherever you go in the world, you see the same thing. People want to make sure their kids are okay, that they're safe, that they have a job, and they have good food on the table, no matter what culture you go in. And the cool thing that I found, that even if you don't speak the same language, there's a way to still communicate humor. Because I remember when I went to Italy with my friend Lisa. She's Jewish, I'm Italian. I'm the one with the last name Capo. Yet she spoke more Italian than I do, but because they heard my last name is Capo, they always assumed that I was the one who spoke the language. Yeah. So we get to Italy, and I said to Lisa, this is before it was popular. There's a place called Matera, which is like if, you know, Pompeii's over here, Matera's on the other side near Bari. So Total. So Lisa goes, well, how are we going to get there? There's no plane. I said, we're going to rent a car. We're going to drive. She's going, Fran, you're not going to drive in Italy. I go, why not? It's just maybe a little fast. It'll be fine. She goes, you can't read the signs. I said, I'm sure stop will look like stop, go will look like go. I'll be okay. So they didn't have this thing called the GPS. They had this thing called the Never Lost. And I figured if you're never lost, you should be never lost. But we were lost with the Never Lost. So we get to this gas station and I see this Italian guy getting out, pumping the gas. And so I say to him, now remember, I don't speak Italian. He doesn't speak English. And I say, and I'm mixing up Spanish with thing. I'm going, un momento, please, por favor. And he's like, por favor, that's Spanish. And I'm going, come here, signaling him because I didn't know how to get the gas cap off. So he helps with the gas cap. So I'm explaining to him, I'm going, Matera, how far, far, Matera. He says to me, he goes like this, you follow me, but don't fall asleep when you're driving like an old lady. I go, okay, I'll drive fast and I'll follow you. Now he goes to start his car doesn't work. And he says, you go. Now he's saying this all in Italian, but he's signaling like this, you go. And then he goes, and then I'll drive really fast and I'll catch up to you when you pass the second overpass. So I say to Lisa, all right, this guy said, she goes, how do you know that guy said that? I go, didn't you see this meant the overpass? The guy's going to drive really fast. He's going to catch up to, she's Franny. The guy didn't say one word in English. I said, I'm positive this is what the guy is saying. So now I'm driving. I see the first overpass. And Lisa's like, I don't think this is going to happen. Sure enough, that guy, like he was Mario Andretti, pulls up at the side of me. He beeps his little Italian horn. And he's like, you follow me. And now we're driving. And now I got to, catch up because they drive like 90 miles an hour. It's like nothing. And so I'm driving and I don't want to be lost with the Never Lost and with the guy there. And we drive. And then when you get to Matera, it's all these windy roads. It's as if it was like the time of Jesus Christ with those streets, stone streets. It's actually where they filmed The Passion of Christ. It looks as if you stepped back into time. We're driving. So I felt like I needed to give this guy, offer him, dinner or whatever. So I said to him in English, I said, I want to treat you to a drink or to eat. And he goes, no, you drive too slow. I was like, I'm sorry, but you got to see it.
Oh, my God. Fran, you have been an instructor. You teach people. You've written many guides on how to get on radio and television and how to get yourself known, et cetera, et cetera.
I've written 22 books. How to get publicity without the publicist, humor and business speaking, all like you said. And Hopeville, the City of Light was the one book that hit number 11 on Amazon.
What advice for young comedians, young actors, producers, directors, for our audience would you like to impart upon them, and lessons that you've learned along the way? Because let's face it, we all trip and fall over ourselves from time to time. But what's the couple of pieces of advice you could give to someone who wants to be a comedian, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is the hardest profession in the world?
Yeah, people say that. For me, I just love it, and I don't think it's hard. But I mean, it's really sucks when you do bad on stage. But so the advice I would say is this: it's like in anything, you study. Don't cheat, don't copy, don't steal. You study people, different performers, and you listen if you're first doing it for the timing. How do they set up a joke? How do they set up, how do they deliver the punchline? What's the timing? So that you get a feel for it. But the main thing is when I was first doing it, if I wanted to tell a story, I would tell it to my friend, this one, then this one, then this one. If 3 separate people laughed, I'm like, okay, that story works. But you never tell someone, I'm going to tell you a joke. Tell me if you think it's funny. Never set it up, because then people sit in judgment. Like, let me see if I think it's funny. Now, all of a sudden, they're a judge instead of just a regular person who you're telling something funny and then they're laughing. The other thing is you have to be true to who you are. Don't try to be the next Joan Rivers. Don't try to be Rodney Dangerfield. Don't try to be whoever is, the comics that are now. Just be yourself. Be true to your style of humor. Are you a prop comic? Are you a deadpan comic? Are you find your voice? And the other thing too is don't be scared to experiment on stage. the worst thing that happens is don't be self-conscious. It never feels good if people aren't laughing. But the one thing is if they don't laugh, you go, well, I told that joke. That didn't work out too good. Don't make it like, oh my God. Like I've seen comics get mad on stage at the audience. What's the matter with you? That's a funny joke. Like that's going to get them on your side all of a sudden. Oh yeah, let me yell at you. And now you'll laugh. So basically it's be yourself. Don't be scared to fail, because fall down 7 times, get up 8. As long as you get up one more time, then you fall down, you're good. And go out there and just use your own unique voice. Never get mad at the audience if they don't find you funny, because somebody who likes one comic doesn't like another style comic.
Right,
British humor, not everybody likes British humor. Maybe they think American humor is too crude. You know what I'm saying? So you just have to be true to yourself. That's what I would say. And never, never, never give up. If it is truly your dream, and if it's not happening one way, find another way to make it happen. And that's what I would say with anything. And that goes back to why creativity is my word for 2021, because you have to not reinvent yourself, because I'm still a stand-up comic. But what you have to do is say, okay, I can't perform live. What else could I do? I could do this Zoom thing. I could do this Instagram. I could, do a radio show. You think of different ways that you could do the same thing. Now we're doing a world record longest Zoom show. You just keep thinking of things so that you keep yourself always going, wow, what's my next challenge? You don't want to plateau in life and just go, I'm good. You you got 20 more years. You're going to just sit there, planting a pot in your backyard, just always think of something.
There's 2 things that have always bothered me. And it bothered me when I first got into business, is comics who have the same routine year after year after year. If you heard them in 77 and you hear them in 79, it's the same jokes. It's the same stuff. And they got stale. And I grew up, as you know, with an uncle who was a stand-up comic. Very successful, Tubby Boots, on Miami Beach. And he used to say to me, when I finally got into acting, he said, oh, thank God, because he said, your mediocre rise to fame in comedy has a downside. Now you're going to be an actor. Now you'll ruin that profession too.
Wow. Okay.
He was brutal. But
that is pretty brutal. Yeah.
But Chris,
but here's the thing, and
let me just say this:
stand up and you had him in the business. The thing is, a lot of people who are just starting out in the business think, "Oh yeah, I have an hour of material." Yeah, that's not true. It takes a long time to get to hone a half an hour, which is what most people need to do an act. And so the thing is, you do it in increments. So you get this, and then you add a couple of more jokes here, and then you get rid of this bit and you add this little bit. But it does take a long time to know. Every time I hit this joke, the audience is going to laugh. I hit this joke, they're going to laugh. These people who come along and say, oh yeah, I have 1 million jokes. I'm like, yeah, you have 1 million. How many of them are good? You know, I mean, so that's the thing. And I understand a lot of comics do have the same. There's a lot of material that I have, not a lot, but there's some material that I have that's still the same from when I first started, because I still have that root. There's one joke I do about my son. It's still in there, even though my son is 30 and I did the joke when he was 8 months old. But then I've added things to it going, and I'll make a joke about the fact that I have that joke still. You know what else I don't like is a dirty comic, whether it's a male or a female. I just for the sake of being dirty, I don't like it. I never have. Yeah, well, the thing is, it's an easy out, and it depends. There are some people. Listen, God rest his soul, but there was a comic. He was known as the X-rated ventriloquist, and I'm blanked out on his name. Anyway, I can't remember his name right now. But some people, if they, do that, who's the guy? Andrew Dice Clay made a living out of being a dirty comic. Yeah. And so you have to choose what way you want to do it. And it's funny because you always have to look at what's the golden part of something that happens. With COVID, on March 18th, all my shows canceled. Lost thousands of dollars worth of work on the same day, all shows canceled. And I decided I would do this thing called Fran Capo. And I would do it every Monday and Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And I would do about a half an hour. And it was more kind of like the RV story, like just telling stories of things that happened. Well, I did 52 of those episodes and I went, 52 half hours. That's a lot of material.
Yeah.
And but it not necessarily something that would translate into doing it as on stage stand-up comedy, but it did get bits of different parts of my life that I can now use into the stand-up comedy. And none of it was dirty because I'm doing it on Facebook Live.
Right.
So you can be just as funny, but I think what happens is it's the quick laugh,
Yeah.
saying, I can't say it because I'm not going to say it here, but quick laugh, getting the dirty stuff.
But by the way, getting back to Tubby, he did that on purpose because Chris DePetta, who's going to be coming on the show, and I think in a month, he said to me, Gary, I watched you perform in Los Angeles. You were just fine. You were an impressionist, and you did some jokes. He said you were a fine MC for Bud. He said Tubby did that for a reason, to keep pushing you and keep pushing you, because nobody loves you more than the members of your family. And it did. It ticked me off, but I worked even harder to come up with jokes. Jay Leno said one thing to me and a lot of other comics, and Jay and I are not that far apart in age, was if you're clean, you work everywhere. If you're dirty, you're limited.
That's true. You're right. That is true. And also, I mean, you don't have to be clean, like squeaky clean with like a children's show. No. Because I don't like doing children's shows. I mean, that's not true. I do my Love, Laughter, and Light, which is different stories about how I broke world records and all, different crazy little stories. But that's, I could tell to children, I could tell to anybody. But there's a different timing for adults than for children and what they catch in innuendos. So, but you can do innuendo, but not necessarily, where you have to be out and out just dirty,
Yeah. I don't agree with that. And finally, before we say goodbye, how do people get a hold of Fran Capo if they want to do a corporate show, whether it be on Zoom or something else? How do they get a hold of you?
Yes, thank you, because I do corporate shows on Zooms. I do table reads. I do voiceovers for anything that's needed. All that stuff is at Fran, Fran, Capo, Capo, like head of the mob. Fran, I'll do this.
Yeah.
There we go. FranCapo.com.
I love that picture. I love that picture.
It's my cartoon logo. You know who the guy who did it was? The guy from Ripley's. The Ripley's Believe It or Not guy. They did a commercial, a cartoon in the newspaper, and I said, "Can I use it as my logo?" And they let me use it as my logo. The one thing I will say this: even though COVID is still going on and blah blah blah, I'm also a certified hypnotherapist. As a gift to the world, hopefully, and to anybody who needs it, if you go to francapo.com, I'm also a certified hypnotherapist. I created 2 mindset meditations. One is for the daytime and one is for the nighttime. So if you're having trouble sleeping, or even if you just want to wake up feeling invigorated, you can download it. Just put your email in and you get to listen to it. And I'm not speaking obviously like this. I'm like, now you're going to be sleeping, so it's got that different voice, and doing that. And I also did a segment of MTV from my basement here, and that's going to air next month in February.
Oh, that's fantastic. You never stop moving forward. And
you can't. You know what? You limit yourself. There's no limits, and COVID is not an excuse. Mm-hmm. Don't be a victim of anything. Always find a way to be victorious, not a victim.
That's why you are one of my dear friends in the whole world. I am so jealous of Steve, and you can tell Steve I'm jealous of that. But also tell Jeanette when you talk to her, I said hello. Wait till you get this young lady on the show, folks. You're going to love her. Jeanette Barber she's
hysterical. She's hysterical.
I can't wait to the Barbara Walters story where she painted the mustache on the cutout of Barbara.
Oh my God, yeah, and dun, 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 the clown part, yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely. I love you with all my heart. You know that. If you and Steve decide you are going to come to Florida, please let me know.
I will.
I am so grateful for you for coming on this program. I am so grateful for everybody out there who watches this program, and it's going to be on Facebook and YouTube. It is now on Twitch. So we're going to have some fun with this. And again, Steve, Tommy, would you put the logo up there of Fran again, please, for francapo.com, please. She's a dear friend. Whatever you need, give this young lady a buzz because she's fantastic and she's so talented. She's so nice. She's so beautiful. And
I think people, thank you so much for all those compliments and good luck with your show. And
yes.
also, if people want a little motivation, when they go to francapo.com, beside the mindset meditations, I did a TEDx talk, and it's called how you could accomplish anything by having a world record mindset. So it's funny, but it's inspiring. So yeah, if you got 11 minutes, go listen to it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all so very much for joining me and my guest, Fran Capo, my producer, Tommy. Next week, we have Mark, Rick, and Donna coming on at 4 p.m. We're going to 4 p.m., and we're going to have some fun. We have some great guests coming up. I'm trying to get Marion Ross, but I couldn't. But I have Loretta Swit. I have Anson.
Awesome. I said, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. And Chris DePet is coming on. Plus, we also have
Chris.
some other great guests coming on real soon. Some interesting people in the showbiz community. We thank you all very much for joining us. Join us next week at 4 o'clock for Mainstream right here on the Community C News Network. This is Gary Allen for Fran Capo and Tom. Thank you for joining us. Until next week, take care of yourselves and each other.
Thank you.